What's going on, everybody? Back with a post-game show to get you in the know. I am Ethan Myers with The Know, www.theknow.com. Check us out everywhere at either The Know or at Be in the Know on most social platforms. So, another week, another Saints loss seems to be, what we've come to expect from this team in the last couple of years. Unfortunately, this year being more so the fact, just a rough game to watch. I think I always this whole season I've said stay competitive. Go out there and try. And I think the one positive I'll take from this game is I do think the guys were still competing, which is nice, right? And you lose to draft pick and all that stuff. If you want to talk about that, I would prefer to just play good football than worry about draft order. But Tyler Shuck throwing the ball 43 times. You kind of saw that number was going to tick up once Alvin Kamara went out with a knee injury, so that makes sense. But he did get sacked 5 times, so that not very good. Uh, a 24-10 loss. He was only responsible for one interception. I don't know if you put the fumble with Alvin Kamara on him. That was just kind of a weird handoff in general. It kind of looked like Chuck wanted to keep it, but AK also wanted to keep it. So just kind of a bad communication issue there. So, but pretty good game overall, I'd say from Chuck. And the interception late, I don't really put that on him. He's trying to make something work at the end of a game and just put points on the board. But yeah, I think there was some effort that I saw that I appreciated. I think the biggest reason for this loss is play calling. A lot of folks were saying that making comments about Kellen Moore and his position and status as head coach and things like that, and saying that he might not be it. And at 2-9, I think there probably be a lot of coaches on the hot seat. But frankly, I don't know if I'm on that train yet. I do. A part of me, sees a little passiveness in him that I don't like. And even Brandon Staley, our defensive coordinator, I don't see a lot of energy from him. And special teams coordinator, the fact that you haven't asked to fire or said we're firing Blake Grupe 3-4 weeks ago, just for him to have a couple of good weeks and to forget about it, to come back and essentially just have an awful day and be in the situation where you only make one of the three field goals. It's just not good. Or technically, I guess he made two, but one was an extra point. So never mind that. But something to the tune of 70% on the season for field goal kicker, and that's just awful. On the other hand, the Falcons have been through three kickers this season. And I just think in a 2-9 season, going back to the special team situation, why not find somebody else? We gave up on Hartley for less. We gave up on Lutz for less. And while Hartley didn't have much of a career after, Will Lutz is over there still being big nuts Lutz and kicking field goals and winning games for Sean Payton in Denver. So, a part of me says don't give up on him because that, but I don't feel that either one of those guys are ever as bad as we're seeing Blake Grupe right now. And so, to give the benefit of the doubt, Will Lutz also had some issues where he was kicking the ball too low, and he had a conversation with somebody, and he found a way to fix that. And most of Groupie's kicks are wide right. So, maybe it's something in his form, maybe it's something in the way the ball's being held. I don't know. But the biggest thing for me is intensity, right? And you just don't see it. And right now, to correlate this to Pelicans, my biggest fear is that Kellen Moore is Willie Green. Great guy, likable, good for the organization as far as image and things like that, but just doesn't have the it factor, doesn't have that dog that makes him cutthroat, and I think we all saw last year with the Atlanta Falcons when Dennis Allen apologized to Arthur Smith about scoring that go-ahead touchdown at the end there, with Jameis Winston. I don't know if Moore I don't think Moore would be either way. I think he's too passive. He's too in the middle. He's not, oh, I want to be friends, but also not, I want to, put it on their throats. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time talking on the Moore topic. The play calling stuff. Let's be honest. When you're down on the 1 yard line and you're starting Taysom Hill 7 yards behind, and you have a center who I think this is his third game, second game, I don't know. I think second because of the bye week. And Taysom Hill is coming a couple of games off of injury as well. I don't know if that's the play you make there. And one time he did a rollout with Taysom Hill and put the ball in his hands to throw in a congested field, and a congested field is not good, period. And it's hard for a quarterback when you're in the end zone like that. But add on the fact that, let's be honest, Taysom Hill is not that accurate of a quarterback. It's the reason he's not a quarterback in the league, right? He can throw, but there's tight ends that can throw, and Taysom Hill is a football player because while he can play quarterback and he can play tight end and he can play running back and he can do this and he can do that, he can do a lot of things, but that doesn't mean he can be a good quarterback. And that doesn't mean he can throw accurate in the red zone. So the fact that you decided to put the ball in his hands in that scenario on a rollout, I don't know. That's a huge question mark for me. And then later on, again, you put him 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He's a bruiser, and you snap the ball over his head. Play your game, play to your strengths. That's the biggest thing I want to see from Kellen Moore right here. I want him to go. He had all bye week, but he didn't know quarterback. You're coming in with Tyler Shuck after one game and yada yada yada. But I think it's time for Kellen Moore to look at the man in the mirror. I talked about Brandon Staley at the beginning of the year, so I'll talk about Kellen Moore the same way. There's no way the regression is this bad with some of these guys. Now, granted, we don't have a lot of the guys that we had before this, right? We don't have Derek Carr to look at if he's regressing. We don't have, Rashid Shaheed's now traded. But I don't believe that it's either a personnel or a coaching issue. I think it's a playbook issue. And I think, you had the skill and you had the speed and you had the talent on the Eagles to be cute and to do what you do. But to be a good coach, I don't think you can say that my playbook should fit everybody because my plays are perfect. I think you should say, I'm going to make my playbook fit everybody. And I think that's what Brandon Staley did. Brandon Staley has done a great job at taking this defense that looked awful, that was getting beat, and we still got beat. Don't get me wrong. That play, went back in time 10 years with Moody and Cousins. Whatever. Besides the point. Other than that, I think the defense played a great game. You kept the Atlanta Falcons to, what was it, 16 points for a majority of the game. You kept it within striking distance. You scored the only touchdown. So a lot of people are going to look at this 24-10 score and say, oh, the defense let us down because of one play to Moody, whatever. I think the defense had a great game, and Brandon Staley has taken this defense and really hidden a lot of the weaknesses in the defense and found a way to make strengths to cover up those weaknesses. And I think that's what a good coach does. And I think that's what Kellen Moore needs to do to, one, salvage his reputation with fans, and to, two, keep a job, right? I'm not saying the Saints aren't famous for firing guys after 1 year. I think that's evident with a lot of the blunders that we've had, but not the Saints, the organization in general between the Pelicans and the Saints. But you see this pretty consistently where the Saints are not willing to move on quick, and I'm not mad if they. Obviously, I don't see the Saints firing anybody in the middle of the season like this. It took a lot of nonsense going on with the Pelicans to fire Willie Green, even though we were only 10 games into the season or whatever it was. So yeah, Kellen Moore needs to go back to the drawing board. Like I said, you don't, as a coach, I don't think you sit here and you say, my playbook works for everybody because I'm the perfect play caller. I think you say, I'm going to make my playbook work to everybody. And that's what Kellen Moore needs to do. Brandon Staley found a way. We need Kellen Moore to find a way. And I don't know if there's any saving the special teams decision. I don't know whose decision it is to keep Blake Grupe, right? But there's also been a fair share of kickoffs that have resulted in a situation where we look bad on kickoff coverage. And I'm pretty sure that our special teams coordinator was a part of this new rule change. So the fact that he was for it but can't defend it leaves me a question mark with them. But I also think special teams coordinator is one of those things that it's just as important as head coach. It's just as important as offensive play calling. It's just as important as defense. And I think that was evident a couple of years ago when Sean Payton was here and we were having some special team issues, and he went to the archives and uncovered an artifact and brought back. I don't even remember his name. I'm not going to look it up because I don't want to go that deep into it. But you get the point. But yeah, interesting game. Left a lot on the field. There was at one point that I felt like we could have been up you know, 24-9. Instead, we lose 24-10. Pretty abysmal performance there. You're on the 1 yard line twice in the third quarter, and you walk away with 3 points. You're inside the 30, I think, 4 times, and you don't have an offensive touchdown. Period. Most of the yards that Shuck and the offense put up were, you know, promising drives that just equated to nothing. And even if you don't talk about the fact that we left, in my opinion, 20 points on the field and on offense, talk about special teams. A groupie missed the two. That's another 6 points. You add those points to this. It's an 8 point game at the end, 16-24, and you're in a position to potentially win. But the other thing that leaving points on the field, whether it be a field goal, a touchdown, or anything, does is it gives the other team motivation, right? The Superdome was rocking. There was a lot of action in the Superdome. The Saints fans were showing up because it's FTF, Falcon State Week, everything that you want to call it. You lost that momentum. You didn't score countless times. You missed field goals, and the dome's out of it. But you go into this game and you score when you're supposed to score. It's a different game. The momentum's in your favor. Prime example was at the end of the half. You go in there with 2 minute drill, and you walk away with nothing because you missed a field goal. You give the Falcons the ball back, and you're fortunate that they did not score a touchdown there because they only got a field goal, which still sucked for us. But you go down and you score there, you're in the lead. It's 14-13, and you get the ball when you come out of the half. You score again, it's 21-13. Instead, you did nothing for an entire quarter. You let the Falcons score in the fourth quarter, and now it's 24. And it's just it's crazy. But you go from potentially leading at the half, giving them no time, leading at the half, and then also getting the ball out of the half and scoring again, and just going up 2 touchdowns in a hurry. Instead, you make it a 6 point game against yourself, or at that point, I think it was a 9 point game. But either way, instead it's a 9 point game, and just a complete flip. So, not going to spend too much time on that. Like I said, just some quick rundowns. Desmond Alvin Kamara out the rest of that game with that knee injury. So, if you're going to ban the hip drop tackle, ban it. Don't let it happen. Call the play, or call the call. And I don't know if it was a true hip drop tackle, but the result was the same, right? He put his weight. Alvin Kamara fell awkwardly. He got injured. Why ban it if you're not going to call it? We haven't seen it called all season. So whether or not it truly looked like a hip drop tackle, it just hasn't been called. So I don't get the point of making it illegal. So the other thing I want to touch on before we jump into around the league talk, Ruiz needs to go. We tweeted about it. You got beat. You saw your quarterback get tripped up and go face first into the turf, and you walked away. You'd be walking away from my team. If you're a starting lineman and you walk away from your quarterback going face first into the turf, you're done. Like, that's it. That's the last snap you'll play for me. You have a long redemption arc to get back on the field for me. But he was there next drive. I don't care who the next guy up is there. I don't care how bad he is. You're bad. You're not only are you bad play wise, but you're also a bad teammate now. So that's 2 negatives. So whoever's next up, put him in. That was awful. And like I said, Ruiz, I don't even know if he'd be dressing the rest of the season for me. So jumping in around the league, Buccaneers play at 7:20 against the Los Angeles Rams. Buccaneers are still having a pretty good season, 6-4 against the 8-2 Los Angeles Rams. The Carolina Panthers will play tomorrow against the San Francisco 49ers, 6-5. So it's going to come down very likely to the Carolina Panthers and the Buccaneers, and who plays better football in the second half of the season on who wins the NFC South. So they got the 49ers. So two good teams that they're both facing off against. So and I don't know. I think whoever doesn't get it, just you have to win a lot of games. I think both teams would have to be really good to get wild card, because you got the Packers and Lions that are both not first in their division at 7 wins each, and then you have the Seahawks and the 49ers at 8 and 7 wins respectively. And then you have the Cowboys, who could have typically in December the Cowboys are going to fall off, but maybe it's different this season. Maybe the Cowboys kicking on. And then even then, the Vikings 4-7, the Falcons 4-7 now. They could turn something on and give them a run for their money. So I think to make it to the playoffs, Buccaneers and Panthers are going to need to win a lot of games. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. We didn't do a pregame. Feeling a little, backlog. Just moved in, as you guys may be able to see. There's some boxes behind me. So, new place. So we're getting settled in there. So, but we'll be back next week. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you check out the website, www.theknow.com. We have pre and post game articles for Saints. We have post game articles for the Pelicans. We do this every week. We also have a podcast, the Dome Discussions. They do podcasts every week breaking down the Saints games and matchups and recaps and stuff like that. So check that out. And if you're a Pelicans fan, make sure you check out State of the Pels. We'll hopefully be getting some of that back soon. So again, Ethan Myers with The Know. Check us out everywhere at Be in the Know. Thank you and have a good rest of your Sunday.